I'm sorry that I'm being a bit of a dog with a bone here, but the female Space Marine debate is one that I have never truly weighed in on. Mostly because any response I've had to this previously is simply to state that it is such a non-debate. They do not exist in the lore, and God willing, they never will. But as this is clearly the topic of the hour, there is one question I see posed again and again, usually in some form of a rebuttal, namely, why can't the female Space Marine whiners just go and enjoy the female armies that already exist? If it is so important to them, why don't they go play the Sisters of Battle, or the Silent Sisters, or even now, with the new Sprucers, an all-female Imperial Guard regiment? You know, the stuff that is already in the lore, and that they don't have to make up ridiculous excuses like, my headcanon is just as valid as your literal lore. That will forevermore be a brilliant example of hardcore anti-fanism. But the question is worth answering, for the truth of the question and the reason why will make you understand much better why this vegetable of a debate just won't die, and why we need to slam it down as brutally as possible each and every time. Because this is not an honest question. It is not a good faith debate. It is an invasion. Simple as. And in their more lucid and honest moments, even the anti-fans themselves can admit it. Can admit that it is about the Space Marines, the poster childs. For it is not about representation. 40k has and always has had tons of that. The Sisters of Sin have been in the lore since Rogue Trader. The point was never to see positive female representation either. Again, there are plenty of good female characters in 40k. Everything from Imperial Saints to crazy spaceship-sized harpoon-firing World Eater captains. Nor was diversity ever the point either. The plastic is grey. Your dudes can have any skin color you wish to obsess about. The point is the same as it has always been in every other setting and universe invaded by the woke anti-fan. It is to tear down and replace what is popular. This is why the cardboard box that speaks became a Skywalker, even as Luke himself died, forgotten and unloved, on a backwater planet. This is why a Scooby-Doo spin-off show has an Indian Welmer self-insert and no Scooby-Doo. This is why He-Man died in the first episode of his own show, and then died in the last episode too, just to really hammer home the point. Namely, that this is no longer your IP, it is theirs now. They have taken it over, for this is solely about power and influence. To turn the setting into another vehicle for their own personal agendas. And getting GW to bend the knee to female Space Marines would be the clearest, most undeniable signal that GW could possibly make that they have elected to put the agenda before the story. For as we have gone over, God only knows how many times, there is no basis for female Space Marines in the lore. The only even semi-possible explanation you could give would be literal warp-spawned monsters from the depth of Fabius Bile's most disgusting laboratory. Not exactly the positive representation I imagine they would want, and if that was to happen, they would simply cry that this isn't actually female Space Marines after all. Because even if GW was to surrender, that would just be a signal that they are now ready to be used in whatever fashion that the anti-fan now wishes. It is a signal that now further changes can be made, as obviously it wouldn't stop with female Space Marines. This is yet another thing we have seen again and again. Nothing can ever be woke enough. There is always a further frontier, no matter how massive the surrender might be. In fact, the surrender itself will probably be seen as some sort of an insult. As was seen with Moana, a story about Polynesian islanders. It couldn't possibly get any more diverse, right? And at the end of the day, it's just a fanciful story about a young girl going on an adventure. There couldn't be anything wrong with this. And that is where you are wrong, as it was swiftly declared to be offensive. Why? Because it depicted the demigod, Maui, as obese. And Polynesians have a problem with obesity rates, you see. And so obviously, this was construed as a dig at fat Polynesian islanders. As I said, it can never be woke enough. But hey, that's a bit of a silly example, right? Moana wasn't intended to be a woke movie, so clearly it wasn't woke enough, obviously. Alright, what about this then? This is an excerpt from an interview with David Ayer, the creator of the movie Bright, which I actually kind of liked that movie. It was blunt, and it could certainly have done more to sell this message in a better way, but it wasn't actually awful. So, David Ayer says Bright is the woke, R-rated Will Smith fairy tale police action movie America needs, and describes it as woke as fuck. Well, there you go. So clearly, this has got to be it, right? It can't possibly get any woker than this. It was built from the ground up to be woke. And guess what? It still wasn't good enough. Because it failed to make any valid points about the state of race relations in America. Now I want to reiterate, this movie, the only thing it did was tell you again and again with the subtlety of a dump truck that racism is bad. It was the only point it was getting across, and it was jackhammering it into your eyeballs every second it was on the screen. And that was still not a valid point about racism in America. I am not kidding when I say that it actually can never be woke enough, for the simple reason that for this group of people, outrage is power. It is their influence. It is why they want female space marines, but the next step. They need something to be offended about so that they can force the company that has already surrendered to all of their demands to make further concessions. And that is frankly also the beauty of their strategy. The moment that GW begins to kowtow to their demands, they have accepted their moral worldview. And as that view is that there is always something woker on the horizon, it means the company has created an infinite paddle for its own ass. One which will be wielded with great enthusiasm until there is nothing left of the product. Until the fans who originally liked it will be told unironically that the setting was never for you and no longer wishes to have you as a customer. And make no mistake, it has already begun, and it has been going for a very long time. GW has already been surrendering in the small parts, in the little steps again and again, for remember, always remember, if you agree, we're happy to have you. But if you don't, you will not be missed. The company has already, as I say every time I mention this, for the first time in its entire history, decided that one group of people is not allowed to enjoy the hobby. And if the female space marine question is ever allowed to take root, it will simply be that, again and again and again, forever. At some point we must draw the line, and this is an excellent point to do so because it is easily defendable terrain, and it makes our opposition, well, look ridiculous. So the next time you see this debate pop up, and the next time you see people asking, why don't you just go enjoy this other thing that already exists for your supposed needs and demands, you know why. It's not because they're actually looking for female space marines, it's because it would be a tactical entry point for them. And that should motivate you all the more to shut it down as hard as you can. Gatekeeping is the only true virtue in any honest fandom. And if you don't do it, very soon you'll find yourself on the fringes of that fandom you once enjoyed. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.